Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for July 14th, 2016. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the ES here in a daily time frame. We see that prices pushed through the 2120s and has continued nicely higher. We never got a rejection back below that area, and instead what we've seen is higher highs and higher lows day over day. So even in the trading room, we've been poised at looking at buying the dips day over day until we see signs of rejection. And so far, we've seen no rejection. We've seen a continuation, and we've seen price pause, continue, pause, and now continue. When we start to see rejection, we'll know it. One of the big keys will be watching the previous session's two-day highs here. Any rejection back below that point, so back below 2155s perhaps, would be a rejection that could imply that we could be looking at a move back to 2120. At some point when we do find rejection on these highs up here, wherever it may be, at least short term, the first target will be 2120. So that's what we will be looking for at some point. But right now, we're not quite at that point just yet. We have 2172 as a major target above. That's a 25% expansion from the major key range that we've been following. So if we push into 2172, that could be in an area where you see some short-term weakness, and that could result in some pullback that could be defended by bulls on the next swing up here. So right now, still continued overall trending behavior until proven otherwise. Let's take a look at the intraday time frame for a moment. If we look on an intraday basis here, you can see prices have been pushing higher in overnight trading. Very, very impressive push higher. And this is a nice impulse range that you can watch. And then that could give you some key levels perhaps for the rest of the session. 2155 is the level we talked about in the higher time frame. So that's kind of the pivot for the day. Pullbacks into that area likely to be defended. A failure to hold 55s could open up a return back toward 2140. So that's something to keep in mind for the rest of the day. Now let's take a look here at crude oil. We'll bring up just a basic chart here. Here you go, crude oil. Now this one has gotten a little iffy here. Now in the previous session we had a nice bounce off of our key zone. See, we had the buy stops that were run 2 sessions back, and then price came into 46s here, 45.91s, and initially bounced, and it was a decent opportunity until the crude oil inventories came out, and then the stops were run, and you saw the big move back toward recent lows. So that kind of blew out that pattern there. So now prices are just coiling around MCVPOC here, which is 45.88 on a 2-year composite basis. And you can see here we formed kind of a rounded top here, and we're just chopping around a major area of value. And so whenever you're around composite value, 1-year value right here being 45.60s, you have 2-year value at 45.88. So it's just chopping around that zone right now. Not a whole lot to do at this moment. We had something that was developing. It didn't fulfill itself, so now we have to kind of stand back, rewatch this, and just know that around value we could see a lot of chop back and forth until we see that next move. So at the moment here, we're just kind of watching this area. We're watching to see how this thing plays out. We've been in an uptrending market, but price has run into key resistance here in the 52s. Any pullback could still be a buying opportunity. This thing has been trending higher, but we have to see how price shakes out from value here. At the moment, it could just be a lot of chop, so be careful. Now, if we take a look at the intraday time frame for crude oil, you can see right here prices pushed higher off the recent lows, 44.50s. Yesterday, as I mentioned, 45.91 was going to be a very important area to watch as support. Right here it was. That's when it came into 45.91s, right? Rallied big time. And then once the report came out, it retested the area, bounced again, and then took the stops out. What was important here is that on the 45.91s, if you bring it across, after it went offered, it came back, made it resistance, and then dropped into the previous session's low. That's what happens when you get a rejection of a key level. So you see the major bounce, it bounced again, but when it went offered, it made it resistance. So that's how you knew we had the right key level we were watching. That's 45.91. So right now, what I see here in overnight trading is that here's 45s. Price pushed above it, made it support, and is now pushing higher. So short term, this 45.12 is going to be very important. Any rotations into that area could be a buying opportunity for a push back up. Failure to hold 45s in that zone, 45 to 45.12 opens up new lows. So that's going to be the major pivot here, 45 to 45.12. That zone is where bulls want to defend. Failure to hold it opens up another round of weakness ahead. Okay, let's take a look now at gold futures. In a higher time frame, gold futures right now, this one here has been very, very erratic. And what I've mentioned to our trading room, and I've mentioned to others as well in our reports, is that there's really nothing to do right now except for be patient. 1306 to 1307, that's a good zone to watch for a buy opportunity. So the next push down, this could present a great buy opportunity for the next swing move up, and that could give you a good 60 handle rally. So 1310, call it, up to 1370, 60 handles. That's a big move. If there's any failure, so if price bounces and then it fails to hold above 1306s, that could spark a move back to value at 1243. So the time to act is coming soon, but it's not now. Overall, this thing has been trending higher, and all pullbacks, no matter what degree, have been buying opportunities. So gold is still bullish in my opinion. Pullback should be buying opportunities. That's why I mean the next opportunity could be 1306 to 1310, somewhere in that zone where you have a nice LVN. That could be a great opportunity to buy it. But for right now, you got to be patient. If there is any failure to hold that support, it could be a big time push downward back toward value. But right now, the first inclination is that support should hold. All right, now taking a look at the NQ. The NQ has been holding above our 45.50. It's still a key level. Despite the fact that prices aren't holding above it, it's still an important zone. So very similar to what happened over here. You know, you got your resistance that came off to the left, price spiked above it, closed below it, and then started to come off to the right. That led to weakness. You know, we're kind of seeing some of that right now, right? You have a very clear 45.50. You're seeing the spike above right now, 2-day highs. What if in an upcoming session we start to build here, right? That could start to show you that, hey, we've seen a little bit of rejection and there's a lot of sell stops below 45.50. If they're triggered, that could spark a move back against the range. So 45.50 is still important. That's an area where bulls are still trying to defend for a continuation. I mentioned before, 4,600 could be a very important zone to watch for weakness because of one main fact, and that's the composite profile. On the composite profile here, you see this level, this gray line. That's VAH, value area high on this. This is a one-year composite. Down here, this is VAL, that's the value area low. And then this right here, that's the composite VPOC, and that's value. So whenever price gets above this gray line up here, it start to be considered overvalued. And if prices are overvalued, savvy traders usually come in and defend and return to value. Same thing if prices are down here. Anything below this line is considered undervalued, and typically savvy bulls will return price to value. So right here, we just got into that portion today. You're already seeing some selling pressure come in pre-market trading above that level. So that's just something to consider. We may be nearing a point here where prices are getting a little overdone. It may be not quite yet ready to sell it back down, but prices are starting to at least hold, starting to lose a little bit of momentum. It's just something to consider just as we head into the upcoming session. How does price play out above 45, 90, 4,600? If there's continued rejection above that zone, it could be time to target the sell stops below 45.50 for some sort of return lower. All right, if we look at the intraday time frame, here's an intraday look at the NQ. Again, one thing that was important here, we had our trading range, right? This trading range was very important. We were talking about fading the edges in the previous session, right? If you get new lows, you look to fade it back up. You know, new lows here, fade it back up. If you get new highs, fade it back down. You know, it's just a trading range. But this time we got a big push up out of the range, and now we've come back and they're trying to hold right on top of it. So it's going to be important here to see how this plays out. Our price is generally going to be able to hold above the 45.85s, and that's kind of like the line in the sand right now. Was resistance here, then went bid through it, now it's trying to hold a support. Are they going to be able to hold that pivot? If not, it auctions back down. holding here could get you back up. But if this is a rejection, we could be looking at playing below this zone. Remember, 4,600 is here, 45.90 is here. That's the zone in the higher time frame we've been talking about is being rejected. And you can see a 3-point reversal. Here's a high, and here's a high. 3-point reversal here with a push here, rejection, and a push. If they're going to reject prices here, the implication is a return back down. So those are some key levels to watch as we head into the rest of the session. We'll see how this thing plays out. Good luck and trade well.